Welcome to the Hark bonus episode for Lady Killer, an 87th Precinct novel. And that is our now familiar sound of Stephen Royston huffing his book. And I think, is Steve-O's the oldest edition that we've got here?
Certainly is.
Musty.
It's the first Penguin edition, first UK Penguin.
Let me have a look. It is
It's the Green Spine one, anyway.
published in Penguin Books, 1964. Yep, it's the published in Great Britain by TV Borden, 1960. First published by 1964 first.
First Penguin.
Yeah.
And Morgan has got the
I've got a late
70s Penguin.
77. Indeed, it's well-thumbed 1977 edition. Not as musty as Steve-O's, but still musty-ish.
Mine's highly discoloured, actually.
Yes, yours has got
even
the look
for
of
a
a
book of this age is. Yeah.
Well, I think there's a quality to those Green Spine crime novels that they all very quickly take on the same hue, regardless of when they were done. I think that there's a particular look to those Green Spine ones, even more so than the
Penguin
Orange Spine
Crime,
things.
2 and 6.
2 and 6.
I like we'll talk about the covers in a bit.
Yeah,
Talk about yours first.
I'll just get mine out of the way because I have the
shit one.
That's the one I normally have.
Yes, I have the Allison and Busby Limited 2007 edition.
I think given all the 40-odd books, I don't think I've got a single one of that type.
Well, they only published, I think, 6 of them, maybe, or 5
the ones
of
with
them.
Killer in the title, I think.
Which is very strange. Now, Lady Killer, the book we've discussed in our main podcast, and features no spiders whatsoever, is illustrated on my book cover by a spider's web. And that's
Excellent.
it.
Well,
So it's...
the spider's web of
They're not. But if it was that they were... If it was that they were trapping him, or he was trapping them, that would make sense. But the only reference to a spider in this book is when they visit the fiancé of the suspect. He says she had her hair cut in that thing called a spider cut or a bed bug.
Right, of course.
He was in a web a bit, wasn't he?
Oh, well, maybe. Oh.
Yeah, wasn't
This
he?
is a very
Wasn't he?
sideways way to come around to the idea of a
Wasn't
spider.
he, though? So I think, perhaps we've found,
Oh,
well, it's
maybe.
fairly...
That would be a
I
very
like
obscure...
Morgan's, though. They made a mock-up of the...
They have indeed.
of the note.
We have, a nice little mock-up of the note, and we also have the binoculars there.
I quite like the ones those 70s editions that all have the cityscape in the background.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
The police badge, the 87th Precinct badge, and then the two objects or whatever it is from the book every time.
I like the Ed McBain text.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's one of
the
my.
big
They are
blocky font,
sort of my
it's
big
great,
favourite editions. But your earlier one is those classic Alan Spain
I
covers.
particularly like the binoculars that've got 2 eyes in the end of them. That they're pretty good.
Yeah, I think that sort of photo collage thing was quite popular at the time with a number of books, a number of sort of graphic designs.
These
of
are
things.
repetitive there on the others, but circular.
Now, Steve-O, I'm being led to believe by sources close to me, i.e. you, that your book has some weird writing in the back of it.
It does, actually, yeah. It does. Addresses mainly, but there's a bit curious text.
Go on.
Theo Ramos
Oh, Theo Ramos.
must have owned this book. Theo Ramos, 52 Grange Road, is that Lewes? Lewes, Sussex?
Oh, yeah.
But also, same handwriting, all the same handwriting this. Same time, I would say. Studio 3, Chelsea Farmhouse. Miriam Street? Miriam Street. What do you reckon to that, Morgan? Mimim Street, London. London Southwest 10. And then it goes on to say R.A. Regent 7981. That's a curious...
Is that the phone number? I mean, at one point, Regent 7981 sounds like a phone number. Sounds like something someone would ring in a film from 1948.
R.A. Yeah, perhaps that is, actually.
That's interesting. Imagine
Telephone
if
Regent 7981.
Imagine if Theo Ramos was still alive and was coincidentally one of our listeners.
Well, indeed, if you're out there, Theo, get in touch.
What's RA, though?
Royal Academy.
Registered address, Regent 791. Don't know, curious which...
Ruth Ampersand.
Well, probably.
So those are the covers.
Resident of the Adronadaks, or whatever they called.
Adirondacks. Oh, I've forgotten already. I've already forgotten. I haven't revised the pronunciation. Yes, it's me, Groff Conklin, the fact-checking ghost here. Theo Ramos. I think I need to do some checking up on this character, and I think I'll have something very interesting for you to listen to in the next podcast. I may also, by that point, have decided what my voice is supposed to be doing. Goodbye. I've got a couple of things that we need to address here. I need to do a couple of, I suppose you'd call them shout-outs, really.
And we've got some questions.
We've got a couple of questions.
I know of one question.
I received an email from a chap called Dylan Winslow, who was saying that they'd found the podcast through our links to podcasts about Columbo, because on Twitter we follow a lot of similar things, and I suspect... Oh, there's a moth in my face. That's by the by. I suspect at some point we will be doing our Columbo links more explicitly. But he sent us an email, and he mentioned about in the Pusher, we talked about the word gunzel or gunsel as the idea of a guy with a
gun,
a hired
gun
gun
to sell. Yeah.
Before Dashiell Hammett used it in the Maltese Falcon, he says it referred to a young male prostitute, which is a sort of underlying thing that Dashiell Hammett uses as a bit of an insult in the book. And it is mainly referred to a gun-carrying thug. And the OED notes that, like much American slang, it comes from Yiddish, genzel, or little goose. So which I don't think I'd found that reference. So that's a nice little bit of detail there. So thanks very much for that, Dylan. That's nice of you to have got in touch. And also on Twitter, we've been having some nice comments from someone whose handle is Dominator Rago, or Rago, I can't remember how it's pronounced. That's a reference to a Doctor Who story, second Doctor story, called The Dominators. I don't know what his actual name is, but it's been very encouraging. So, hello to you, Dominator, and your quarks, who are the weird little spiky-headed robots.
Well,
I quite like The Dominators. It's a good story.
Very good.
So, those are the mentions. I have questions from our friend, Dr. Andy Davies.
Excellent.
And the one I think we should go to first, the main one, is which Liverpool pub is the most suitable to be used as a scene or location for an 87th Precinct novel?
Whoa.
Well, we just dealt with a book where there's a location called The Pub.
The pub, yeah.
You see, they don't. I was thinking about this. Then they never really go for drinks, do they, together as colleagues?
No.
Only
ever when they go for
series ever. I don't think. I mean, at all.
No, they just go like...
So they're always grilling suspects or trying to find somebody, and my impressions are always basement bars. You know,
low
like
level,
dive
sort of
bars,
like street level bars.
Or street level, but with the steps down.
Yeah, but not quite cheersy.
No, so difficult to think of I'm not really sure any pubs would do. Some of the new dive bars in town are probably more.
Yeah, I don't enjoy a full dive bar though.
No,
a dive bar has to earn its diviness.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
I've taken that dive.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to like the place to think it's.
Well, no.
I'm just trying to think of places.
I concur.
But yeah, difficult question to answer that. Really.
Maybe the only one
that
I could
Berry
think...
and Rye on Berry Street. You can see that being a bit of a.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a darkness, a bit of
a deliberate cloak
you
and
could
dagger
imagine
vibe.
Mayor coming in there looking for some Hal Willis, searching out a hoodlum.
Having a bit of banter with the
or no
barman.
tip off from Fats Donner, maybe.
Or maybe the only other one I can think of is the Pilgrim, which has got that sort of weird off the street vibe down the stairs.
Yeah, down the stairs. Yeah.
It's got booths, which is what a lot of American sort of bars would have had, because they often end up going back to a booth to talk.
Yeah, maybe.
And I expect that they all have cubicles where the toilets are about 6 inches deep in piss as well.
Yeah,
That's true.
it's one of those. So yeah.
So I think, that's
But your traditional English pub is difficult to fit into a
Certainly, yeah. Absolutely.
An 87th precinct, I would say.
Yeah. And we have another question from Andy. Is if you were designing an 87th Precinct book cover, what one element would you have to include? And you can't say author's name or title. And it's a tricky one. I think at some point we're going to get my friend Adam on from a perspective of a graphic designer or someone or an illustrator, and we'll have a look at different covers and things. We aren't graphic designers or illustrators, but we do look at a lot of these book covers. And one thing I've noticed is some of the better editions are the ones where it's the simplicity of like a particularly well-chosen image. There's issues out in Italian at the moment, Italian issues of a lot of these books, and they're more or less plain white covers, save for like one image on the cover that's relevant to the book, like a ring or whatever, or a spider or whatever it is. Quite simple, but not sort of Alison and Busby simple. So I don't really know.
You could have the 8-7 globe, couldn't you? Because that's mentioned in quite a lot.
Yeah, because that's a feature of the outside
one
station
thing would be
houses.
quite interesting to have on the back of the book, or the would be a map of Isola.
Yeah,
That could be good.
I know people have made and written maps, even though the evidence in the books contradicts each other a little bit sometimes.
I wonder whether in the course of these podcasts, one of us or I might try and produce a map.
I think it's interesting. It's, I mean, like, as Terry Pratchett wrote his Discworld novels, they started out set in one specific city and then lots of sort of fantastical areas around it. Well, not fantastical, really. Forests and this, that, and the other, and other countries that were... But a few books into it, someone made the effort to produce a map of Ankh-Morpork, because so many streets had been named and they'd sort of been in the same place in the stories. And then Terry Pratchett, the author, worked with the guy, Stephen Briggs, and his stories from then on used those maps. So that extended out from Ankh-Morpork into the disc in general.
That's interesting, because you could either, as an author, you could either view that as a great license of creativity, or you could view it as well, now I've got a map. You kind of...
I can't make him get from there to there in any less time.
You're kind of restricted by what the map allows.
Yeah,
whereas if you're McBain, you can say, well, there's this really wealthy street that everyone knows about in Iceland, but I've just failed to ever mention in the previous 40 books. And like, who are we to say that, you know...
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't exist, because it clearly does, because he's telling us. And so, yeah...
It's an interesting one when you map things out. Yeah. I've been reading a Murakami book recently, Hard Boiled Wonderland, and the first thing you see in that is a map of the end of the world, which is a place, I think. I don't know, I've not got that far into it. It's too intriguing. So, I know it's interesting, though. You could have some sort of reference to the city landscape. You could have the police globes. I like the police badge on those editions that
that's always
Morgan's
good.
got there.
As you say, just a cityscape or a skyline. If you have to have an image that's going to be applicable to all the books, that would always...
Well, because the city is a character.
My penguin in there. Yeah, this immediately evokes... This book is set in a ginormous American city in one image.
And that one's basically saying, it's a city on a waterfront, like an island type city. Whereas mine says... It might have a spider in it.
It doesn't, but that's fine.
I think something depicting the massiveness of the city.
I think that's...
You couldn't go far wrong with that, could you?
No.
Because that's the one thing that is...
constant throughout, really.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go, that's our answer. Something representative of the city.
Well, there's some stats in this, and we never mentioned this in the... When they're going on about the population of the 87th precinct, it's 90,000 people.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just in the 87 precinct.
So there's at least 86 other precincts before you even get to that, and then probably more after that.
Well, we know that there's more because they bring in outside help from the 102 quite a lot and things like that.
So it is definitely a New York scale city, like unbelievably massive city.
At least 100 precincts of approximately 100,000 people each. That's where you get to your kind of 10 million population.
Yes, that's true. Yes, he does like to throw in the stats actually for his verisimilitude's sake. I think in this book and in possibly in the next one maybe, he talks about police salaries and how that breaks down.
Or is it the next book? I might be quoting from the next book because I have reread them back to back.
Yeah.
But maybe it's the next one that 16 detectives, then something like 180 odd patrolmen.
Yeah,
so it gives you a good flavour of the scale of the place.
I do like that. It does ground it and mean he isn't just going, I'll just put as many police on the street as I need for the story. Of course he would if he needed to.
Naturally.
But it does try and keep it a little bit more grounded in the initial research he obviously did when he started out with the series of saying, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to make it this sort of hero, Gestalt type thing.
Well, he must have gone to New York. So, right, how many detectives have you got in each precinct? How many what's the population? Where's the how many patrolmen? What's the scale?
And the police would have gone, oh, not you again. Why are you asking me? Go, Mr. Hunter, go away. Mr. Hunter, we can't spare you any more time. That's another accent for you there. That's another very accurate accent of a man dismissing a author of a nascent police procedural series.
Definitely.
So anything else to add, gentlemen?
I don't think so, no. I'm quite looking forward to the review of the next one.
Yeah, eager to get going with that. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, well, we'll do that before too long. Anyway, so otherwise, we will conclude the bonus episode for tonight. And once again, I will say goodbye. Goodbye, as will Morgan.
Very well.
And Steve-O.
Goodbye.
See you soon.